Yeah, hello and welcome to the Hailerz residency once more. This is our second session for this weekend, and it's titled Advertising 101. Now, just a little backstory for myself. I I worked in advertising, I want to say 10 years ago, which seems like a really long time now that I think about it. But yeah, did work in advertising for about 5 years actually. So worked with some agencies, and this was over in Nigeria. My first job was actually as a copywriter. So I used to like write advertising copies. So this session really is designed to introduce us to what advertising is and what copywriting is, because nowadays we can't avoid it, right? It's on our phones, it's everywhere we look. But back in the days, advertising, well, it still is. It's something you had to go to school to study, or and I only say that because a lot of people are getting into advertising now who may not have formal knowledge, but they're still doing great at it because of courses they can take quickly, or check in with ChatGPT and knock something out, which isn't a bad idea. But it's also very important that we at least have a foundational knowledge of what advertising is and why we use different types of advertising in different situations. And still on my story, so I worked as a copywriter for a company called Integrated Troops. It used to be somewhere in Ikeja, and it was a great job. What I did was basically write. Someone else does the graphic design and fun part, and what I was tasked with doing was just write maybe a sentence, or in some cases a whole paragraph. So I would spend all day thinking about that one sentence that would connect with a consumer when they saw that advert, which was kind of interesting. It was sort of a lazy job because I would, spend all my time reading newspapers and, doing research. Internet was very limited back then too, so we'd do a lot of research and come up with ideas. But in the end, my idea will be valued because it's something that took a while to think about and to countless research to get to, but it's something that could easily connect with the learner or with the audience whenever we placed it on a billboard or newspaper ad. So that was fun. Did that for, I want to say, 6 months or a year, and eventually I moved into other parts of the business. At the time, was sent as part of a group to we were hired by Unilever at the time to market Omo Multi-Active, which I hear may be going out of the market due to competition. So did go on a tour of 36 states in Nigeria at the time, and that was fun. So moving from one state to another in about 2 months, which was one of the best experiences that I've had, in my life. So yeah, that really just got me interested in advertising. So whether it's billboard advertising, social media, like any form of advertising always catches my interest. So we'll talk about some of those topics today and why ad agencies make decisions like this. Now, I don't know where your location is or how specific this would relate to anyone watching, but you kind of have to apply it to your own situation, right? And if you're looking to further, okay, you're in Nigeria, okay, that's great. Yeah, I know they have like AppCon and many other agencies that you have to get certified by in order to get into advertising. but it's an interesting field. I can't say a lot about the pay, but it's interesting nevertheless. And there's so many aspects to it. So there's media buying, there's copywriting, graphic design, obviously. There's video. There's so many aspects to advertising that one can get into. You know, you get to work with celebrities, work with just a whole bunch of people that you normally wouldn't. And I have this fun activity to kind of kick us off in the session. And it's really, you know, it's a reflection piece, right? So what's the last advert you remember and why? So this could be something on your phone, something you've seen on a billboard, maybe close to your house, or like what makes, you know, if you're able to share, like what makes that advert memorable for you, and what can you remember about that ad?
I'm actually trying to remember because I have
Yeah,
some, but
yeah,
the
take
same
your time.
holds like
Which one?
I was to say I still remember Indomie hats.
Indomie. Okay.
Mm, yeah.
Which particular one? I know there's been several, like several Indomie ads.
The one where they use the child and they sing Bamba Lala, Bamba Lala. Yeah.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I don't know that one, but I'm sure. I mean, for you to be able to sing the jingle like that must have left an impression on you, right? So can you maybe share a little bit about why you
Um,
recall that one?
I would say it's the children. They made use of a lot of children in the movie, and how they actually the way they smile all through shows that they were really happy, and Indomie actually made them happy. So,
Yes,
and
yes.
the song went well, they danced. So I think it was fun to watch.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we'll go through some examples as well. Um, you know, sometimes it could be there are many tools that have been employed for, especially for a TV ad or a radio jingle. You know, there's a music, there's sound effects. You know, those are all things that you can easily recall. And I know in today's world, there's so many voiceover artists out there. It didn't used to be that way. Like if you needed to do a voiceover, like it would either be done by someone who's already working at the radio station or something. Like they're just wearing that many people interested in those types of job back then. And I'll try to stop saying back then. But the I think the central idea is, you know, there are different elements that could make you remember an ad, and the goal of the person putting together an advert is to make it memorable, right? They want you to remember it. They want it to be top of mind. So, you know, think about different ways. Like it could start with a score, music, or it could start with a sound effect. Maybe somebody knocking on the table, like that catches your attention. The the main premise is to grab the audience's attention right from the beginning and make them listen or watch. And it's even more important in today's world where, you know, you only have a couple of seconds to keep a learner's attention or an audience's attention. Now I have some examples here. Well, this isn't the first one I wanted to show. I think, yeah. So this one is a little bit older. And you may have never seen this before, but it's a bank PHB ad, which Bank PHB, I think they're out of business now. I'm not sure they're still around, but they did revolutionize advertising back in the day, and I'm referring to maybe like 2000 and 2002 or something that old, right? So this one is is a throwback, but it's still relevant till today, and you see some of those principles as we watch this one. I want you to notice how it starts off. I want you to notice the tagline, the payoff, right? Like some of the principles of advertising is you first show the benefits. And this one really, why it stuck out to me or why I remember it is because it was kind of revolutionary. It got you thinking like, wow, like what's going on here and how can I be a part of it? So I'm just going to play it and we're going to watch it for, say, 1 minute.
My heart is steady. I'm heading down the road. Smoking freeway is all I need to know. King got tomorrow, but living in today. Celebrating one day, cars will run on water. It's my life. You're already thinking like that. Ready to play. It's my life.
Yeah, very simple. Did you catch all of it or do you want me to replay it?
I did.
Okay, you did. All right, perfect. Yeah, like what do you think? I mean, just watching that what stood out?
For me, it's absolutely crazy. It's the fact that instead of refilling his car, it was refilling himself. Like you're ingesting fuel.
Right. Yeah, like it got you thinking like like I'm sure
Yeah,
some of
exactly.
us,
What's going on here?
yeah, I'm sure we're thinking like, is he actually drinking fuel or is it water? You know,
Exactly. Splashed all over his body.
exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, what does that say about the bank? So, I mean, you have to remember this is a bank ad. It's not they're not a gas station or something. It's for a bank. So why do they use that analogy? And what are they trying to communicate, right? And part of it is, the tagline, in case you didn't hear it, I know the sound was a little muffled. The tagline was, or the copy was that one day cars will run on water, right? At Bank
Oh, I
PHB,
didn't actually hear that part.
yes. At Bank PHB, we're already thinking that way. Like that's the whole premise of it. So,
Can
it's
you come
really
again?
so at Bank PHB,
Okay.
we're already thinking that way. We're already thinking
Like,
about
what is the
cars.
first thing you do?
One day cars will run on water, like water will
Oh,
power cars.
oh.
Yes. And I can play it again. Let's just watch it again now that you have a little bit more context.
All right.
My heart is steady. I'm heading down the road. Smoking freeway is all I need to know. King got tomorrow, but living in today. Celebrating one day, cars will run on water. It's my life. That PHP, you're already thinking like that. It's my life.
Right. Yeah. So that's the whole idea. Like one day cars will run on water. So it's actually water in that pump, right? Now how it was produced, I'm not sure. Like that looked a little, I don't think there was any AI or anything that could have achieved that. Did they actually add water or is it, like um, there's so many things to unpack in how it was produced. So that's just one. So a little bit, something that's a little more recent is this one,
Nigeria.
also by a band, but
Those who divide up people are getting better at their game. But our daily struggle to make ends meet unites us. We are united in being deceived by those we have trusted with our resources. Corruption no know ethnic group or religion. Yet, We did do ourselves pass. Lecturer the oppressed student them. Mechanic the dribble cow now. Bus driver they show passenger where. Tailor the make monkey cry on Saturdays. Mr. Bank manager no go support our common man business.
Yeah, this one is a little longer, so I'm just going to, at least pause it there. But as you start to watch it, right, it's very clear what the speaker or the voiceover artist is trying to, or the brand, I should say, what Union Bank is trying to do here is connect with the audience at a level where they become relatable, right? Like they want their message to be well received. And I'm sure they still get into the message, right? But they're kind of drawing the audience in and showing everyday struggles. So, by the time the audience, feels like, okay, this is relatable, I can connect with this, then they're more willing to listen. But is there any, do you see any shortcomings or any, should I say, downfall for this form of advertising from what you saw so far?
I would say no, because it's relatable. Even if perhaps I do not have an account with them, I will be willing to watch because it's something that is relatable, what is going on in the country. So
Yeah.
that was perfect.
Yeah, good answer. 𝗧cie, I also see you on the line. Did you watch what I just shared, and do you have any comments? What are some potential blind spots for this type of advertising? And just to give you a clue, it's like 2 minutes, 34 seconds long. Okay, while we wait for 𝗧cie to respond, it's too long, is what I got from it. Like some of the ideas at some point started feeling repetitive. The audience get it at that point. And I'll just continue playing it so you see what I'm saying.
Stop calling people. I'm terrified. Look, big people will come and go. Grammar people will play.
So it really depends on the medium, right? So if it's been shared on YouTube as a documentary or something, but I don't think it's a TV spot because that would be a lot of money. Like when we're talking about TV spots, and we're talking, traditional advertising in this case. If we're talking about TV spots, like, think about the lengthiest adverts you've seen recently. It can't be more than, say, a minute at the most, and that's even stretching it, because it costs a lot of money, for even to produce a 10 seconds ad or 20 seconds ad. Those cost a lot of money these days. So you would have to think about, how can I, you're not only battling the financial side of things, you're also battling the attention of the audience. Would they sit there just waiting for the message, or would they skip? So those are some things to think about, even as you decide on a medium to showcase your advertising. So you want to customize your advertising based upon the audience and many other factors. And I'll skip at this point. I'll skip a slide to the next one if I can get to it. So we'll go over some key definitions relating to advertising. So advertising, and take note of, all of this may sound like things but these are like the basic forms of it. So paid communication designed to persuade or to inform. Now for me, I feel like the best form of advertising is one that informs, that it's not even trying to sell at all, because people don't want to be sold to, right? And I'm speaking generally now. Like if you try to sell something to somebody, if they feel like they're being sold to, or that you're being too persuasive with your message, it might just turn them off. But for advertising to be effective, oftentimes it's one that presents information and then gives the learners some power to make their own decision, which is almost, information is different from marketing. So marketing, on the other hand, is a strategy that includes, it's combining all of the aspects of advertising, branding, and customer engagement. Can anyone help us out with what branding is? So what is branding? How do you think branding differs from advertising? All right. Welcome, Samarian. The question on the floor, and we're talking about advertising today, but the question is, how does branding differ from advertising? Khadija, I see your hand up. Please respond.
Okay, so I would say advertising is a way of communicating whatever it is that your let me say your product and services to people to buy. Why branding is a way of communicating your product and services to your target audience and for them to build trust in you. So I would say branding is like earning their trust, why advertising is for them to buy.
Okay. Yeah, that's very well put. 𝗧cie, I see your hands up as well. Please go ahead.
I was going to say something almost similar to Khadija. Branding is your company's identity, and then advertising is you selling your product to your viewership, or you selling your product to your customers. Yeah.
Yeah, spot on. So branding, like you rightly said, has more to do with the value proposition. It has more to do with who you are. So you were talking about the company's culture and value, and how it relates to the audience. So how do you connect your message to that audience is what branding is. So advertising is more, the purpose is to sell, to inform, but branding, on the other hand, is just who you are. So, and I'll use this analogy, like Superman, or any superhero. Well, Superman in particular, like he's Superman even without the costume, right? Like the costume doesn't make him Superman. But on the other hand, it becomes more like commercial when he puts on that costume, like, okay, that's Superman. But innate to him is, he's just Superman, like whenever he wakes up, and so on. I don't know if that makes sense, but let's move on. So copywriting, and like I shared with Khadija at the beginning, I actually started my career as a copywriter. Copywriting is the art of writing text that sells, persuades, or inspires action. Now, this form of writing is different from other forms of writing. So when you look at an advert, whether it's a newspaper ad or billboard, that clever line, that clever tagline, that clever message that that makes you stay on that advert for 2 seconds or for 5 seconds, however long, you know, you need to, that's what we call copywriting. So it could be something that was said cleverly, or it could be something, but the main premise of copywriting is it needs to grab the attention of the audience and retain it. It needs to make them think. And sometimes it could be a rhyme, and I can't really think of any rhymes right now, but I'm sure we'll see some examples later in this presentation. So it's a way, copywriters have a way with words. They have a way with, and there are things we call body copy. There is the header. For example, this is a header. This could be like the name of the company or something that grabs attention. And then you have the body copy, which explains, all in a bid to persuade, right? Or to inform. Now, here are some other definitions to examine. So these are all forms of advertising, right? And they're almost arranged chronologically as well. So since the beginning of time, well, not since the beginning of time, I'm sure there are other forms of advertising before that, but TV and radio, since those were invented, have been the major forms of advertising, right? Like, think about it. We've grown up just watching TV and radio. There was no social media back then, and so they all have their advantages, and these are just some examples to examine, and we'll also look at the strength of each one. So TV and radio, they're capable of reaching mass amount of people. So people, the internet even makes it better, right? So TV, radio, they're capable of reaching everyone in, say, a country, but it's also still local, but it's a lot of people, right? And you can really get into people's emotions when you can use some form of emotional storytelling, as we've seen some examples so far, when you're using TV adverts. Even with radio, it feels like that person is next to you, talking to you. It feels like a friend. And that's why we connect with those messages. And we can talk about the opening, the closing, the payoff, the call to action. Always save that for the end, because you can't really call somebody to action if you haven't told them the benefits of doing so. Print advert, which is still a thing, right? We still pick up newspapers. We still, I do, still pick up newspapers from time to time. We still pick up magazine ads. They're all targeted towards a particular audience. So you just have to know your audience. If you're selling something that's maybe internet-based, would print advert be your best option? And if you're selling something that's more local, maybe a local listing, you want to list your business, I think a newspaper or a print ad might be the ideal situation. So it depends on what your budget is and what your reach is at that point. Now, the most expensive of them, usually I would say, is a billboard. So it costs a lot of money to put up a billboard in almost any country, right? So, even though they have high visibility, but it's also very expensive, because the idea is, a lot more people are seeing it. It's giving your brand some form of respect. But I may be wrong, though. So what was the last billboard you saw? And this is a question for everyone. Do you recall seeing any billboards? Are those even being looked at anymore? Or are you too busy looking at your phone? Anyone? Do you remember a billboard that you saw? Yeah, Khadija, go ahead.
I think that's the billboard of Mattel advertisement. It has Davido and some other people in there. I
Okay.
think I actually looked more for a few seconds because I saw Davido there. So
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so there's still a thing, especially now, as we're getting closer to December, that's in December, or we don't want to miss out on anything, right? So it's right there. And there are, think about, just like on TV, you have your prime time. Your prime time is usually a time when people are home, they're sitting in front of the TV, the whole family's gathered, they're having dinner. That's your prime time TV. And back when I was in advertising, that used to be like your 6 p.m. in the evening. The parents are back from work, the children are back from school. That's your primetime TV. To get a spot at primetime TV, that's a lot of money you got to spend. But will 12 midnights be considered primetime? No, everyone's asleep at that point. So the advertising becomes cheaper, and we didn't even have like 24 hours TV stations back then. It was, just 6 hours or 12 hours in a day. Like, can you imagine if TVs were like 6 hours and you only had 6 hours to watch TV? Yeah, like, but some of those lessons can still be, used in today's world, right? So that's that for outdoor advertising. Digital advertising, you have your Google ads, your email campaigns, you can have an email blast, you can even have your text messages, SMS, like flying into people's phones without even leaving your couch. Like, you could pay a company to do all of that stuff for you, which, it's measurable because you can tell how many people open it. You can also tell how many people clicked on it in some cases, which is great, right? So it's just figuring out which medium you would like to use, and advertising is really still evolving. I don't know if you saw in the news recently, there was a groom who rented his suit out to companies to advertise on his jacket during his wedding. That was kind of mind blowing. Like, why would anybody do that? It's distracting, but he made a lot of money from it. Everyone's kind of chasing clout or the hype nowadays, and sometimes that made the news all over the world, that a groom actually used this suit for advertising. So that's just some things to think about, like how is advertising evolving, because it's going to evolve. It's not going to stop at social media. Things that people are getting creative with it. Are there any other forms of adverts you've seen that are outside of what's listed here? Anyone?
Hi.
Yeah,
Um,
hi.
is fa- yeah, can Facebook Marketplace be considered as a form of advertising?
Yeah,
Facebook
yeah,
Marketplace.
yeah. I think so.
Yeah,
I think
I
so.
think that
Right. Yeah, it's more of like listing. So you're trying to sell something. Yeah. So if you're trying to sell something, but it also seems more of marketing than advertising. So at that point, I mean, there are elements of advertising because you're probably competing with other people too. So you want to put your product in a way that shows its best quality, so that someone makes a decision to reach out. So yeah, that's a good form of advertising for sure. But But what I want us to really get from this session, because I mean, we're aware of a lot of these things, but at the same time, how does it really translate? How can you make use of it, knowing what it is, even if you didn't now? Like even if you didn't before, like now you see why some of those decisions are being made. How does it help you get your message out, and what would you start to do differently is what you should be thinking about as we're wrapping up. You always start with your audience. Like, who is my audience, right? What do they need? And that brings us to the next activity, right? So what media type is this? And you can type in the chat or come off mute.
Could you please repeat the question?
Yeah, I said, what media type is this? The image we're looking at, what is it of?
Billboard.
Okay, it's a billboard. And so notice the difference as we explore other media types. Notice the difference in the copy, right? Like, look, this is a good example of copywriting. So it says, tastes like $1 million, but only costs $1, right? Like, isn't that, like, it holds your attention? Like, you're thinking, wow, something that tastes like $1 million, but only costs $1. Even if you didn't want to drink a Coke before that day, but just the thought that you can have a feeling of, it's tapping into your emotions. Like, you can have that feeling of owning $1 million if you just make this $1 purchase, right? Like, that to me that's copywriting right there. But if I just said, oh, look, it's a bottle of Coke, nobody's going to buy that, right? But someone is more likely to make a purchase if they read this copy. So it's a very simple copy, but it's very effective, I think. Do you think it's effective? Okay. I see you agree with me that, yeah, like, it's very simple, but it can be effective. Now, what media type is this?
Flyer.
Okay, yeah, this could be a flyer. It could be a banner on the internet somewhere, but mostly it does look like a flyer. And notice how many more words we have on this flyer now. Like, like, think about a billboard. Do they have a phone number? Do they have a website? I'm sure they do. But will someone who is in a bus on Todd Mainland Bridge or somewhere else, will they see any other message on this billboard? What's more important for them to see? They need to see the product, so it's right there, front and center, and then they need to read that text quickly before their bus passes by, right? So we're not using a lot of words for that, but when you have a flyer that you got from somebody, you have a lot more time to digest that flyer. So that's why all this information is in there. The date, the website, the centers. They even have a disclaimer at the bottom. Like, you wouldn't add a disclaimer to a billboard, right? And then you have this one, which we should all be familiar with, right? This is social media advertising. And it also varies from platform to platform, as I've discovered. The way that you talk on Instagram is quite different from the way that you talk on Twitter, for example. Even on Twitter, you're limited by the number of words you can add to it, right? And not to talk of TikTok, where, even if you add text, nobody's really there to read your text. They're mostly there to see a quick video and move on. So we have to think about those things as we, think about the medium you're using and what's most effective for that medium. So some of the copywriting principles are: know your audience, know who you're speaking to. And this picture really represents an audience, or a diverse audience. Lead in with the benefits. I know we've talked about that a few times on this call. What's in it for them? How do you quickly connect to your customers? How do you use emotions to tap into their hopes, their fears, their desires? Be clear, be concise, no fluff at all. And finally, end with a call to action. Tell them what to do next with this information they just got. So the information could be, oh, we have cheap deals on a car. Tell them where to buy it. Tell them when, or the address to go to, the phone number to call, and so on. Does this make sense? I know we only have a couple of minutes left, but just wanted to know if anyone had any comments, or is anything sticking out to you on this call? Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay, so for a startup, would you say that there's a specific kind of media they should go into first, or should I say they should make use of first before extending to other form of advertisement?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you're asking for a startup, what's the best form of that? I think, well, it really depends on the startup, right? It depends on your audience and where they are. And I'll use Hailerz as an example. So at Hailerz, we know that our audience is 20 to 40-year-olds and so on. I mean, not to say there aren't other groups included in this, but that's our primary audience. So that's 20-year-olds. We feel like, even though our content is all clean, but we also feel like we're not catering to folks who are younger than 18. But at the same time, we also want them to have some experience. Maybe they've had some failures. We can connect better with folks who have tried some things. So maybe they have 2 years before 20 to try out some things, and maybe their talent, they're trying to do something, maybe get into music and it's not working out, or it is working out. How can we support those people? So that's our core audience. So those are well defined, even though we have a global audience, but at the same time, we're starting out from Africa, right? We're starting out from Western Africa. We're starting out from this location, and that's the whole concept of who our audience is. So being able to define that audience has really helped us shape where we're focusing our advertising. So Instagram is a place where we've found that a lot of young folks are on Instagram. And also we've found out that video is one of our best mediums to use. That's why we don't post any photos. It's all video, right? Because videos are engaging. They tap into that creative side that we know everyone has. So yeah, so sorry, I'm saying a lot. That's maybe not answering your question, but depending on the startup, so depending on who your audience is, what your product is, you can start to explore, and you can try out different audiences or different platforms, but always just focus on the one that's giving you more results, I think. For example, for us, we have a number of platforms. So we're on almost all the platforms. So TikTok, YouTube, Threads, Facebook. and so on. But even though we've seen traction on Instagram, we also feel like some of our message, like this, residency program, can be better on platforms like LinkedIn, because there are, serious-minded people on LinkedIn, people who are looking to learn. So we're looking to focus more efforts on LinkedIn as well, just so we can get some interest from LinkedIn users as well. So yeah, that would be whichever platform is giving you more returns on advertising investment, I think, is what you should focus on. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we can talk about. I know we're out of time for this session, but we can maybe design another class on more practical ways to and share some other examples of some platforms that have had success. But hopefully you got something out of this. We will share the recording later so you can rewatch any part of it. But it's been good hanging out with y'all, and if there are no other questions, we'll just end it here.
One last question, please.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so you were talking about copywriting. Do you perhaps have any apps or sites that you can suggest to help?
To help you with copywriting?
Yes.
How much ChatGPT or Copilot? and I'm just saying that now because that's where we are now. Like if I had Copilot or ChatGPT back in the days, like I probably wouldn't go to work because I'll just, like this. I mean, I'm not saying don't be original, but at the same time, it's like if you have an idea for a copy, you can just feed it into any of those programs and then knocks something out for you, or gives you ideas, or at least gets you thinking in the right direction. But as far as actual apps, I don't really think that I haven't encountered any apps that you could use for something like that. But yeah, AI would be my best suggestion.
All right, so thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we have come to the end.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, and thanks for being a part of Hailerz. You guys really just make it at least worth coming to the session. So really great to have you here, and see you next time.